welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're unpacking something utterly fundamental to our lives. Human communication.
Hmm.
I mean, we engage with it constantly, right?
Yeah.
From our first mumbled greetings in the morning to, I don't know, complex global exchanges. Yet, how often do we truly step back and understand its intricate mechanics?
Almost never, probably. We just do it.
Exactly. So, okay, let's unpack this. The relevance here is immediate. It's undeniable. Whether you're like ordering a coffee, trying to nail a job interview, navigating a really tough conversation, or maybe just sharing a laugh with a friend, communication is the silent engine driving it all, often unseen.
Yeah, it's the air we breathe almost.
Right. Our mission today is basically to give you a shortcut, a way to get truly well informed about the foundational elements of how we connect, what makes that connection effective, and the surprising layers beneath every single interaction.
There are definitely layers.
Oh, yeah. We're drawing on some profound insights from Dr. Simon Nantamu's comprehensive work on the essentials of human communication. And trust me, you're about to encounter some serious aha moments that will, I think, fundamentally shift how you view your everyday interactions.
Yeah, it's truly compelling, isn't it? How something so ubiquitous, so everyday, can also be so profoundly complex.
Hmm.
We're just immersed in communication every moment, yet, like you said, we often take its underlying mechanisms completely for granted.
Totally.
And understanding the foundational principles we're about to explore, it's not just some academic exercise, it really is a practical toolkit.
Right.
This deep dive, hopefully, will equip you to better navigate not just your personal relationships and professional life, but also your public interactions, and even those often overlooked internal dialogues that shape your choices.
That internal chatter, yeah.
Exactly. We're going to try and unravel this complexity, from the subtlest shared glance all the way up to the vast interwoven tapestry of global cultural interactions. It reveals why even simple exchanges require this kind of sophisticated dance of understanding.
Absolutely. It's about moving beyond just, talking to truly connecting. So let's kick things off with the absolute core. What exactly is human communication?
The big question.
Yeah. At its heart, and Dr. Nantamu frames this so elegantly, I think, human communication is about the dynamic interplay of sending and receiving messages. More formally, it's defined as the sending and receiving of verbal and nonverbal messages between two or more people.
Sounds pretty straightforward on the surface.
It does, right. But let's break that down into its fascinating components. When we talk about verbal, we're referring to the words we speak, the sentences we write, the language we consciously choose. This is often what we sort of default to when we think of communication.
Hmm.
But then there's this expansive world of nonverbal communication. And this is where, for me, it really gets interesting. This covers basically everything else.
Right.
Your gestures, your posture, the tone and pitch of your voice, those subtle shifts in your facial expression, even a momentary glance or like a prolonged silence. All of that communicates volumes without a single word being uttered.
Absolutely. Think about a time you could tell exactly what someone was feeling just by the way they maybe slumped their shoulders.
Yeah.
Or the tight line of their mouth, even if
Okay.
they actually said they were fine.
Oh, the classic, I'm fine. Yeah.
Exactly. That's the power of the nonverbal message right there.
And the message itself, according to Dr. Nantamu, it's far more than just like raw data. It's the heart of the exchange.
Mhm.
A message could be a piece of information, sure, but it could also be a complex idea, a deeply felt emotion, an underlying intent, a subtle feeling, or, something else entirely. It's the content and the purpose behind the interaction. Consider a brief thought experiment for yourself. Can you recall a time you communicated something really profound to someone without speaking a word, like maybe a shared glance across a crowded room that just conveyed empathy and understanding?
Or even just a sigh that perfectly expressed your exhaustion after a long day.
Totally. That's the expansive nature of a message. It's not always explicit, but it's always meaningful, isn't it?
Exactly. And this seemingly simple definition, sending and receiving messages, it introduces a profoundly important concept: effectiveness.
Ah.
Dr.
Okay.
Nantamu really emphasizes that for communication to be truly effective, it actually requires three vital sequential steps. It goes way beyond just the mere exchange.
Okay, what are they?
So first, the message must be received. Seems obvious, but it's step one.
Got it.
Second, it must be understood.
Okay. Received, understood.
And third, and this is often the kicker, it must be acted on in the desired way.
Oh, okay. Acted on in the desired way. That does set a high bar.
It sets a remarkably high bar for what we might consider good communication. Think about that for a moment.
Yeah, I'm thinking, okay, give me an example.
All right, let's take a common scenario. You've delegated a critical task to a colleague, let's say via email. You sent the email, right? So the message was sent.
Yep.
Your colleague maybe even confirmed receipt. Got it. So it was received.
Okay.
They might have even replied, got it, clear as day, which implies it was understood.
Sounds good so far.
Right. But then, maybe a week later, the task is completed, but it's not at all in the way you intended. They missed a crucial nuance, or they completely misinterpreted the priority level.
Ah, okay. Been there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So in this instance, the message was sent, it was received, and it was seemingly understood, but crucially, it was not acted on in the desired way. So the communication, despite ticking those first two boxes, actually failed to be effective.
That makes sense. It didn't achieve the goal.
Precisely. And this framework, these 3 steps, they're a constant touchstone. A message might never be truly received because of some distraction. Maybe your colleague was multitasking while reading your email. Or it might be received but completely misunderstood because of, say, different contexts or interpretations.
Yeah.
Maybe your definition of urgent was very different from theirs.
Right. Different assumptions.
Or, as in our example, it's understood. But the recipient fails to act upon it as the sender intended, leading to that disconnect between intent and the actual outcome.
Okay.
In any of those scenarios, the communication just falls short of true effectiveness. It really challenges us to look beyond just sending information and consider the entire journey of the message and its ultimate impact. This is like a foundational lens as we explore all the other layers in this deep dive.
That's such a critical distinction. Wow, because it moves us from simply, exchanging information to actually achieving something tangible and intentional through that exchange. It means that effective communication isn't just some natural ability you're born with. It's actually a skill set, a practical toolkit for navigating the world. So what does this all mean for you, listening right now, in a practical sense?
Yeah, how do you use this?
Right. It means that understanding communication also involves actively developing a set of essential practical skills, competencies you use every single day, often without even thinking about it, but which can be honed for, profound impact. Let's start with the first one Dr. Nantamu highlights, self-presentation skills. These are defined as the abilities that enable you to present yourself as a confident and credible person.
Okay, the first impression stuff.
Kind of, but deeper. We often think of this in formal settings, right? Like walking into a job interview with a firm handshake, making eye contact, speaking clearly. Your self-presentation there, your posture, your articulate responses is just as crucial, maybe more so, than the content of your answers.
Sure, it sets the stage.
Exactly. But it's so much broader than just interviews. Think about a first meeting, maybe with a new client, a potential collaborator, or even just a new group of friends. How you carry yourself, the way you listen, your nonverbal cues, these all set the tone for the whole interaction.
Right.
It's about more than just looking confident, too. Sometimes it's about, authentic vulnerability, knowing when to drop a facade maybe to build genuine trust, or maybe when to project authority when the situation demands it. It's really the overall package of how you show up, subtly influencing how your message is received and how you're perceived from the very first moment. These skills are constantly at play, shaping perceptions, opening or closing doors.
Obstinately adjusting, yeah.
Then we have relationship skills. These are, absolutely vital. They're for initiating, maintaining, repairing, and sometimes, let's be honest, even dissolving relationships of all kinds.
The whole life cycle.
The whole life cycle. And when we say all kinds, we really mean it. Your personal relationships with family and friends, your professional relationships with colleagues and clients, your friendships, your romantic partnerships. Communication is the literal lifeblood of these connections. It's that constant dynamic exchange that allows relationships to form in the first place, to grow stronger, to mend after a disagreement, and yes, sometimes to respectfully conclude when necessary.
Yeah, that repair part is huge.
It really is. I remember this one time I had a minor misunderstanding with a close friend over a text message. You know how texts can be.
Oh yeah, tone is impossible.
Totally. It was a simple misinterpretation, but it kind of festered. And it wasn't until we actually sat down face to face and actively used our relationship skills, really listening, clarifying, expressing feelings directly that we could actually repair it. These skills are just essential for the entire life cycle of any human connection, from that first tentative conversation right through to decades of shared experience. They're about building bridges, navigating conflict, and nurturing mutual understanding.
Absolutely. And Building on that, another critical skill set, one that's often underestimated in its breadth, I think, is interviewing skills.
Ah,
Now,
okay. Like job interviews.
well, yes, Dr. Nentawa tells us these skills enable you to gain information or to present yourself effectively to secure the job you desire. But let's expand way beyond just job interviews because these skills are so much more broadly applicable.
Okay, how so?
Think about a doctor's appointment. You need to clearly articulate your symptoms to help them gain the right information for a correct diagnosis.
Right, good point.
Or maybe an in-depth conversation with a financial advisor where you need to extract complex information about investment strategies, ask the right questions.
Hmm.
It could be a negotiation where you need to effectively gather information about the other party's position while also persuasively advocating for your own. Even simply asking for directions in an unfamiliar city requires a degree of interviewing, skill posing clear questions, understanding the information you get back.
Yeah, you need to get the info you need.
Exactly. It's fundamentally a two-way street of strategic information exchange and often skillful self-advocacy. It requires both precise questioning and really attentive listening.
Okay, that makes sense. What's next?
And then we have public speaking skills. These are the skills that enable you to communicate information to both small and large audiences, and crucially, to influence their attitudes and behavior.
Okay, so not just big auditoriums.
Definitely not.
Mhm.
This isn't just about standing on a literal stage with a microphone, although it includes that. It could be presenting a report in your weekly team meeting where you need to clearly convey complex data and maybe sway your colleagues towards a particular strategy.
Sure.
It could be giving that keynote speeches to hundreds, yes. But it could also just be explaining something complex to a small group of friends who are curious about something you've learned.
Right, like explaining this podcast topic.
Exactly. The goal here isn't merely sharing information. It's often about shaping perspectives, inspiring action, or fostering a new kind of understanding. It requires not just clarity, but also the ability to read an audience, adapt your delivery on the fly, and connect with them on an emotional or intellectual level.
Yeah.
Think about how a really skilled leader can unite a team around a challenging vision just through their communication. That's public speaking in action, influencing not just minds, but hearts too.
And that interconnection is key, isn't it? It's not like these skills are in separate boxes.
Not at all.
You use self-presentation skills to seem credible when you're interviewing for information, or your relationship skills are vital for maintaining the trust within a team, where you might then need to use public speaking skills to present a project update.
Precisely. They build upon each other. They're interwoven.
Yeah, they create this comprehensive and versatile toolkit that enhances your ability to navigate the full spectrum of human interaction. None of them really operate in isolation. They're deeply interconnected, making you a more effective and impactful communicator across, well, all domains of your life.
Well said.
Now, let's maybe zoom out a bit and then maybe zoom back in to understand the different levels at which communication operates. This idea that communication isn't just one single thing, it's truly insightful. It happens on various scales, right? From the deeply personal to the globally expansive, and each level has its own unique characteristics and challenges.
Right. Different contexts, different dynamics.
Exactly. So the first level, and maybe the most foundational one, is intrapersonal communication.
Intra, within.
Yes. This is communication that takes place within an individual. And you might be thinking, communication with myself, how does that even work?
Uh-huh. Yeah, it sounds a bit odd at first.
It does. But this is your internal dialogue. It's that constant stream of thoughts, reflections, analyses that happen inside your own mind all day long. Dr. Nantamu points out that through interpersonal communication, you persuade yourself of this or that, you reason about possible decisions you need to make, and you actually rehearse messages that you plan to send to others.
Planning your response.
Yeah. This is the silent internal stage where so much of our external communication is actually born and refined. It's the conversation you have with yourself that shapes basically everything else you do and say.
It's foundational.
It really is. Like before a big presentation, you might run through key phrases in your head, right? Anticipating questions, formulating responses, or maybe after a difficult interaction, you might replay it in your mind, reflecting on what went well, what you could have handled differently.
Constantly reviewing and revising internally.
Exactly. It's truly an aha moment when you realize how much of your day is spent in this internal communication and how powerfully it influences your external actions and reactions. It's the silent foundation of all other communication.
Absolutely. And from that rich internal monologue, we naturally move outward to interpersonal communication.
Okay, between people now.
Right. This
Yeah.
is direct person-to-person communication involving two people or maybe a small group.
Mm.
This is where most of our daily connections happen, right? Whether it's that heartfelt conversation with your partner, a quick chat with a colleague about the water cooler, or a brainstorming session with a few teammates.
Yeah, the everyday stuff.
Exactly. It's characterized by its immediacy, the directness of the exchange, and that rapid, often quite intimate feedback loop.
Hmm.
Now, within interpersonal communication, we have a couple of important subtypes. There's dyadic communication, which specifically involves just two persons,
One-on-one.
one-on-one. Think about a conversation with a mentor, a deep discussion with a best friend, or maybe a couple resolving a conflict. What makes dyadic communication so unique and often so potent is that immediate, direct mirroring and intimacy. There's kind of nowhere to hide, metaphorically speaking, when it's just two people truly engaged.
Right.
The feedback loop is almost instantaneous, allowing for really rapid adjustments and often deeper connection.
Okay. And the other type.
Then there's small group communication, which typically involves three or maybe a few more people. This could be a family discussion around the dinner table, a project team working together, or friends planning an outing.
Right, like a committee meeting or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
While it's maybe slightly less intimate than dyadic, it still benefits from relatively immediate feedback and usually a high degree of participant engagement. Everyone can still pretty much chip in.
Got it.
Yeah.
So intrapersonal, interpersonal, what's next?
Stepping up in scale, we encounter public communication. This is defined as communication between a speaker and a public or an audience.
Okay, speaker to many.
Speaker to many. The key characteristic here is the audience. It can range vastly in size, from just several people in a small meeting room to hundreds, thousands, even millions. And in this context, the audience functions primarily as receivers and responders.
Responders, how?
Well, their feedback might not be as immediate or direct as in interpersonal communication, but it's still there. It could be applause, questions during a Q&A session, or even just subtle shifts in attention or body language that a skilled speaker picks up on.
Ah, okay. Reading the room.
Reading the room, exactly.
Hmm.
The speaker has to be more attuned to those aggregated signals rather than individual responses.
Okay. Are there subtypes here too?
Yes, public communication also includes its own subtypes. There's what we might call speaker-audience communication, like a traditional class lecture, a presentation at a conference, or maybe a community town hall meeting.
Right. Define speaker, define audience present.
Exactly. And then there's mass communication, which represents the broadest reach. This involves the mass distribution of identical copies of a message to receivers who may be completely unknown to the sender and often unknown to each other as well.
Like TV or radio.
Exactly. Think about a national news broadcast reaching millions of viewers simultaneously, or a popular podcast like this one, or a widely circulated online article. The feedback mechanisms here are distinctly different from interpersonal exchanges. They're often really delayed, aggregated, or indirect. Think about comment sections online, social media reactions, viewership numbers, download stats.
Right. Not an immediate verbal reply.
Not at all. And the challenge here is huge. Crafting messages that resonate with a vast, diverse, and often anonymous audience.
Okay. So interpersonal, public. Is
Yeah.
there more? Yes. Building on that, we have the fourth level, which Dr. Nantamu identifies as organizational communication.
Okay, within companies or groups.
Exactly. The distinguishing characteristic here is that the communication is from an organization or is received by an organization. What's particularly fascinating about this level is that it actually encompasses all three previously identified levels: intrapersonal, interpersonal, and public communication, but all happening within the context of a structured entity.
Ah, okay. It contains the others.
It does. Think about it. Within any organization, individuals engage in interpersonal communication as they strategize for their tasks or prepare for meetings.
Planning their day.
Right. They engage in interpersonal communication during team meetings, one-on-one reviews, or collaborative projects. And the organization itself engages in public communication through its marketing campaigns, its press releases, or its official statements to the media or shareholders. Examples here include things like internal memos that streamline operations, corporate announcements to employees that foster a sense of shared direction, marketing campaigns aimed at customers, and even the intricate dance of customer service interactions. It's all communication happening within or initiated by a structured entity, and it's this dynamic interplay of all those other levels, often with very specific goals tied to the organization's overall mission.
Got it. That makes sense. Is that the final level?
Almost. Finally, we reach the fifth and broadest level: Cultural communication.
Okay, the big picture.
The biggest picture. This occurs specifically when individuals and organizations from different cultures interact. And similar to organizational communication, this level also involves intrapersonal, interpersonal, public, and organizational communication, but it adds this crucial, often incredibly complex layer of cultural nuance and interpretation. This is where the subtleties of communication can become really profound and also really tricky.
Yeah, potential for misunderstanding seems high here.
Extremely high. Think about the immense implications of cultural context on message sending and receiving. What might be perfectly understood and acceptable in one culture, say, a very direct no in a low context culture like maybe Germany or the US in some situations, could be considered quite impolite or even aggressive in a high context culture like Japan, where indirectness and maintaining harmony are often prioritized.
Right, you need to read between the lines much more.
Exactly. A specific gesture, a way of speaking, even different approaches to time or personal space can carry entirely different meanings. For instance, maintaining direct eye contact, often seen as a sign of honesty or confidence in many Western cultures, might be perceived as disrespectful or challenging in some Asian or African cultures.
Wow. Yeah.
This level highlights just how deeply our shared values, our beliefs, norms, and social structures shape how we encode and decode messages. It's incredibly rich and complex precisely because it requires an awareness of these deeply ingrained cultural differences. It challenges us to bridge gaps, not just in language, but in entire worldviews.
That's huge.
It is. So what does this all mean for us? It means that every single interaction we have, whether it's just a quick thought to ourselves or a global business negotiation, sits within one or more of these dynamic, interconnected layers. It reveals a deep complexity we often overlook in our day-to-day communicating.
It really does paint a much bigger picture. Okay, so now that we kind of know the what, the definition and the where, these different levels, let's maybe explore the how. Specifically, the models that help us visualize this whole process and understand how our thinking about communication has actually evolved over time.
Right. How did we get to our current understanding?
Exactly. Dr. Nantama's work outlines a really interesting historical progression in how we've understood this fundamental human activity. In the early representations, communication was thought to be pretty linear, very straightforward. This is our first model, the linear model of communication.
Linear, like a straight line.
Pretty much. According to this model, the speaker spoke and the listener listened. End of story. It was seen as a relatively straight line, a one-way process. Speaking and listening were viewed as taking place at different times. When you spoke, you didn't listen, and when you listened, you didn't speak.
Okay, very basic, like a lecture maybe.
Or think of early mass communication, like a traditional radio broadcast or a public address from a podium. The speaker transmits the message, the listener receives it, but there's no immediate means for direct back-and-forth feedback built into the model itself.
Right, just sending.
Just sending. Now, while it's obviously simplistic, this model was a foundational starting point. It helped define the basic roles of speaker and listener, but it clearly overlooked crucial aspects of real-time human interaction, like how we respond nonverbally even while someone else is speaking, or the whole idea of a conversation rather than just a monologue.
Yeah, seems pretty limited, and that's precisely why our understanding evolved, right? The limitations of that one-way street became really apparent really quickly. So what came next? This fundamentally changed how we viewed things, the interactional model of communication. This model essentially takes that linear model and multiplies it by 2. It creates a proper two-way process.
Okay, back and forth now.
Back and forth. It describes communication as a dynamic process for generating meaning through feedback, where participants actually alternate the roles of sender and receiver within a physical and psychological context.
Okay, so taking turns.
Exactly, taking turns. Think about your typical conversation. You speak, you deliver a message, then you pause, you listen to their reply, you process that feedback, then you speak again, and they listen. There's a clear back and forth, a give and take, and that feedback loop is vital for making meaning together. It acknowledges that both the sender and receiver are active, but they're taking turns. And those contexts are important too. The physical context refers to the tangible environment, like the room you're in or the noisy coffee shop.
Right, where it's happening.
And the psychological context refers to the mental and emotional states of everyone involved. Are you stressed, happy, confused? All these factors shape how messages are sent and received in this turn-taking exchange. This was a huge leap forward, recognizing the collaborative nature of dialogue.
It definitely was. But the understanding deepened even further with our third and, well, most complex model, the transactional model of communication.
Transactional. Okay.
This is arguably the most nuanced model, and it represents our most current understanding of how communication really works,
Mm.
especially face-to-face. It describes human communication as a process in which communicators simultaneously serve as both speaker and listener.
Simultaneously. Okay, hang on. Not taking turns.
Not taking turns anymore. It's happening at the same time in a constant flowing exchange. Think about it. As I'm speaking right now, for example, I'm simultaneously observing your facial expressions, your posture, maybe you're nodding.
Yeah.
I'm receiving nonverbal cues. That's feedback from you, even as I continue to encode and transmit my verbal message. And I'm probably subconsciously adjusting my message, my tone, or my explanation in real time based on those signals you're sending back.
Ah, okay. It's a
Uh,
constant adjustment loop.
It's a continuous dynamic flow of encoding and decoding happening pretty much in parallel. But the model goes even deeper than that. It also states that communicators generate social realities within a social cultural context.
Generate social realities. Okay, what does that mean?
Well, what does this mean for you? It implies that communication doesn't just transmit existing information or ideas that are already out there. It actively creates shared understanding, it builds and defines our relationships, and it even shapes our very perception of the world as we interact,
Wow. Okay, so communication creates reality in a way.
in a very real way. Consider how a brand new team, through its constant interactions, the meetings, the emails, the jokes, develops its own internal language, its own inside jokes, its own unspoken rules, its own unique team culture.
Right, they build their own little world.
They were literally generating a shared social reality.
Yeah.
They didn't exist before they started communicating. Or think about something bigger, like a nation whose collective identity is forged and maintained by shared stories, historical narratives, cultural traditions, all communicated and reinforced over generations.
Mm-hmm.
These communications aren't just reflecting reality, they're actively building and maintaining it. It's a co-creative process where meaning isn't just found, but actually built together moment by moment. It shapes who we are and how we relate to the world around us. It's a truly profound way to look at how we engage with each other, highlighting the immense power and maybe responsibility inherent in every communicative act.
That idea of generating social realities.
Yeah.
Yeah, that really elevates communication from just a simple exchange to something that fundamentally shapes our experience in our world. Okay, now let's maybe peel back the layers even further. Let's look at the 9 essential ingredients, you could say, that make up any communication process.
The building blocks.
The building blocks, exactly. Dr. Nantemu's work highlights that these elements are present in varying degrees in all the models and all the levels we've just talked about. Understanding them is kind of like having the blueprint for how messages get from one mind to another, and crucially, where things can potentially go right or maybe spectacularly wrong.
Yeah, knowing the parts helps diagnose the problems.
Right. So first up, we have the sender. This is simply the initiator of the message that needs to be transmitted. The sender is the source of that initial impulse to communicate,
Where it all starts.
where it starts. This impulse could be a fully formed thought, a half-baked idea, a vivid picture, a symbolic gesture, a detailed report, or a direct order. But it's not just verbal content, as we discussed earlier. It could also be nonverbal cues like posture, gestures, or even just a momentary smile that conveys welcome, or maybe a shrug that signals indifference. The sender is the catalyst, the one who gets the communication ball rolling.
Got it. The source.
Closely related, obviously, is the message itself. Dr. Nantemu calls this the heart of communication. This is the actual content the sender wants to convey to the receiver. It's the information or intention that is being packaged up for transmission.
What's being sent?
What's being sent. The message can be verbal, right? Encompassing both written and spoken words, complete with their specific vocabulary, grammar, maybe tone. Or it can be nonverbal, pictorial, symbolic, or expressed through those non-word cues we mentioned, like a red traffic light, a specific emoji, or the way someone avoids eye contact. It's what you're trying to get across, the absolute core of the exchange.
Okay. Sender, message, what's element 3? Following the sender and the message, we have encoding. And this is a truly crucial step. It's the process of putting one's ideas or feelings into a series of symbols or words that can actually be communicated to the intended receiver.
So translating thoughts into stuff.
Exactly. Think about it as translating your internal thought or emotion, that abstract idea floating around in your head, into an external, understandable, transmittable form. This is where your brilliant idea, if it's not articulated clearly, can really go wrong.
Ah, okay, the translation step.
Yeah. For example, imagine you have a really complex technical concept you need to explain to a non-technical audience. Your encoding process involves choosing simpler language, maybe using analogies, perhaps creating visual aids, adopting a patient tone. If you just spew out overly technical jargon or rush through the explanation, well, Dr. Ntamu emphasizes that wrong and inappropriate encoding may defeat the true intent of the communication process.
Right, the message gets garbled before it's even sent.
Precisely. It's about choosing your words carefully, selecting the right tone, employing appropriate gestures to ensure your message precisely matches your intent. It's about bridging that gap between your mind and the receiver's mind effectively.
Okay, makes sense. Element 4.
Then there's the channel. This refers to the vehicle or the medium through which the message is transmitted. It's the link that connects the sender with the receiver. And the choice of channel is incredibly important, often quite strategic.
How you send it.
How you send it. The message might be oral, like a face-to-face conversation, a phone call, a video conference. Or it might be written in email, a memo, a text message, a social media post.
So many options now.
So many options. Today, we have this vast array of technologies that serve as channels. A traditional telephone, a smartphone app, a video conferencing platform like Zoom or Teams, television, websites. The channel itself can profoundly influence the message.
How so?
Well, a really sensitive discussion is probably best handled face-to-face, where you can leverage all those nonverbal cues.
Right.
A complex idea that requires detailed review might be best conveyed in a comprehensive written report that someone can digest at their own pace. An urgent warning, though, probably demands an immediate verbal phone call, not an email that might sit unread for hours.
Yeah, you wouldn't text about a fire.
Exactly. The choice of channel is not neutral. It's a strategic decision that impacts the clarity, the tone, and the overall effectiveness of the communication. Sending a breakup message via text. That's a choice of channel that speaks volumes, way beyond the words themselves.
Oh, yeah. Point taken.
Yeah.
Okay, so after the message travels through that chosen channel, it reaches the receiver. This is simply the person or the group for whom the message is meant. But their role is far from passive. The receiver needs to actively comprehend the message so that the true intent of the communication is actually attained.
The destination.
The destination. And Dr. Ntamu stresses this. The receiver is as significant a factor in the communication process as the sender is.
Equally important.
Equally important. Without a receiver or without the receiver's comprehension, the entire communication effort ultimately fails. Think of it like the old philosophical question. If a tree falls in a forest and no one is there to hear it, does it make a sound? Similarly, if a message is sent but it's not received or it's not understood, has communication truly occurred? The receiver's attention, their prior knowledge, their cultural background, their emotional state, their receptiveness are all critical components that determine whether the message truly lands as intended.
Right, they have to be tuned in.
Exactly. And once the receiver gets the message, they engage in decoding. This is the interpretive process. Converting the sent message back into intelligible language, it basically just means comprehending the message.
A reverse of encoding.
The reverse of encoding. The receiver, after receiving that encoded message, all those symbols, words, nonverbal cues, interprets them and tries to understand them in the best possible manner, filtering it all through their own experiences, their knowledge, their assumptions, their context. This is the flip side of encoding, transforming the external message back into an internal understanding. And this is where, again, the meaning is constructed in the receiver's mind, hopefully mirroring the sender's intent. But misinterpretations during decoding are like a super frequent source of communication breakdown.
Oh, definitely. We decode based on our own filters. Okay, so we've sent, encoded, channeled, received, decoded. What's left? The following decoding, we have feedback. This refers to the response of the receiver back to the message sent by the sender. Feedback is often considered the final, absolutely critical step of the communication process, especially in those interactional and transactional models we talked about, because it truly closes the loop.
The response. Okay.
Yeah. It establishes that the receiver has, hopefully, received the message in its letter in spirit. In other words, feedback confirms that the receiver has correctly interpreted the message as it was intended by the sender.
So it shows understanding or lack thereof.
Exactly. This can be a verbal confirmation. Yes, I understand what you need me to do. A nonverbal nod of agreement may be a question that clarifies a specific point or an action taken in response to an instruction. Without feedback, the sender is just left to assume, often incorrectly, that their message was perfectly understood.
Right, you're just guessing.
You're guessing. Feedback provides vital information back to the original sender, allowing them to adjust their next message or simply confirm that the communication was successful. It's what turns a monologue into a dialogue, and it ensures clarity.
Crucial. Okay, two more elements.
Two more. Our eighth element is communication context. We touched on this with the models, but it's a core element itself. Communication doesn't happen in a vacuum. It always exists within a context that determines, to a large extent, the meaning of any message. The context will profoundly influence what you say, how you say it, and critically, how it is ultimately interpreted.
Context is king, they say.
Pretty much. Dr. Nantamo identifies several crucial types of context that are always at play. First, the physical context.
Yeah.
This is the actual environment where communication takes place. A whispered secret in a quiet library versus shouted instructions on a busy factory floor. Fundamentally different communication acts because of the physical context.
Second, cultural context. This encompasses those shared values, beliefs, and practices of a group, which shape what is considered appropriate, polite, or even comprehensible. Third, the social psychological context. This refers to the relationships between the communicators, their established roles, like boss, employee, or parent-child, and their current emotional states. How you speak to your boss differs drastically from how you speak to a close friend, and your mood definitely impacts your communication.
Oh, yeah?
Finally, temporal context. This includes the time of day, the historical period, or even just the point in an ongoing conversation or relationship. Saying it's cold means something entirely different if you're standing in a walk-in freezer versus standing in the Sahara Desert.
Right.
Or if it's a literal statement about the temperature versus, say, a sarcastic response to a rude comment someone just made. Context truly is everything for meaning. It provides the essential backdrop against which all messages are understood.
Okay, that makes total sense. And the last one, the ninth element. And finally, element number 9, noise barriers. Because, let's face it, the process of communication, however well-intentioned, is not always as smooth or barrier-free as it seems on paper.
Definitely not.
Noise is defined as anything that interferes with the transmission and reception of a message. It's the static, whether that's literally in the air or figuratively in our minds, that blocks or distorts the clear path of communication. It can take many, many forms, both external and internal.
The stuff that gets in the way.
Exactly. Dr. Nantamo gives us some vivid examples, maybe a poor choice of communication method, like we said, trying to explain a super complex project plan via a quick bullet-pointed text message. That's a barrier.
Bad channel choice.
Bad channel choice. It could be actual physical noise, like a loud construction site right outside your window during an important call, or other physical distractions that just pull your attention away from a conversation. Language problems, obviously, are a huge barrier in different languages, or even just jargon within the same language. But so is the failure to recognize nonverbal signals, or maybe a cultural difference that leads to misinterpretation.
Yeah, the cultural noise.
Right. I remember trying to explain something complicated to my aunt over a really crackly phone line once while a jackhammer was going full blast outside her window. Talk about multiple layers of noise being a barrier. It's honestly a miracle she didn't just hang up.
Yeah, seems impossible.
But noise isn't just external distractions, right? It can be internal, too. A prejudice you hold that distorts what you hear someone say, a pounding headache that makes you less receptive, feeling really tired, or even strong emotions like anger or anxiety. These can act as powerful internal barriers, clouding your ability to encode your own messages clearly or to decode others' messages accurately.
Your own internal state gets in the way.
Totally. How often is a miscommunication actually a noise problem, where the message itself might have been fine, but something interfered with its journey? All these 9 elements, sender, message, encoding, channel, receiver, decoding, feedback, context, and noise, they are constantly interacting, often simultaneously, in every single act of communication we undertake. They shape whether our message gets through clearly or gets completely lost in the static.
It's a complex system with lots of potential failure points.
Wow, okay, we have covered a lot today. Phew. From that simple yet profound definition of communication, through the essential skills you use every single day, the 5 distinct levels it operates on, the 3 evolving models that explain its flow, and finally, those 9 fundamental elements that make up every single exchange. It's been quite the deep dive, hasn't it? Revealing all these layers of complexity beneath what we often just take for granted.
It really puts it all in perspective.
Yeah. What's abundantly clear, I think, is that human communication is far from simple. It's this dynamic, multi-layered, and often incredibly complex process that we engage in constantly. Hopefully, understanding these intricate mechanics gives you, our listener, a whole new lens through which to view your own interactions.
Hmm.
Whether you're carefully crafting an important email, navigating a tough conversation, delivering a presentation, or maybe just observing the world around you, you now have this sophisticated framework to analyze what's really happening and maybe why messages succeed or sometimes fail.
Yeah. Zooming out for just a moment, the larger takeaway from this deep dive, I think, is that truly mastering communication isn't just about talking more or even just talking clearly. It's really about understanding that intricate dance between the sender and the receiver.
Right.
It's about appreciating the profound impact of context on meaning and acknowledging the ever-present potential for noise, internal or external, to disrupt the flow and distort the intended message. This knowledge, hopefully, empowers you to be a more deliberate and effective communicator, sure, but also maybe a more discerning receiver of messages. It encourages that critical thinking about not just what is being said, but how it's being said, where it's being said, by whom, through what channel, and maybe what unstated social realities might be getting created in that process.
That's powerful stuff. Really practical, too. Okay, so for your provocative thought, something to maybe mull over until our next deep dive. Next time you find yourself in a really crucial conversation, or maybe even just sending a quick text message, pause for a second and ask yourself this. What element of this specific communication, from my encoding of the message to the channel I'm choosing right now, to the immediate communication context, what element could potentially be a source of noise that might prevent my message from being received, understood, and ultimately acted on in the way I actually desire?
Good question to keep in mind.
Yeah. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep communicating. We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.